Good evening, and I am glad to be back on Erev Tov. And well, I know you loved having Andrea Levine for the last couple of weeks. She was awesome sitting in the Erev Tov seat and enjoying some happy hour and some interesting conversation. Well, it is that time when we come together on a Thursday night. There is no happy hour out there, but there is a little happy hour wherever you are. Not just happy hour, but a time to learn something, meet some people in our community, and find those good vibes to move forward during this difficult time. So what do I have here in front of me? I have 3 different glasses for wine, and I have my non-alcoholic glass of water. So this is our non-alcoholic drink, ice water, and we are going to do a little taste test with a little sparkling, a little rosé, and some red wine. Why did I choose this tonight? Our topic tonight is from chaos to calm, creating a fresh start for both home and school, which is going to be a way to help families get back on track, to get kids and families pulling the reins in a little bit as it's time to start a school year, however that school year is going to look for you. I have an expert who's going to join us, a dear, dear friend of mine, Laura Sharp, who's an LMHC, NCC. She'll tell us what those letters mean a little bit later. And so I thought the drink should be what is known as mommy juice. Now, I did not know what that term meant until a couple of years ago when my colleague, Rabbi Judy Kempler, who does not partake in this form of mommy juice, but she had mentioned that sometimes when parents get together for play dates, moms have mommy juice. And I said, mommy juice, what's that? And she said, that's wine. I said, wine, and they call it mommy juice? Yes, well, I think it's now transition time for parents maybe now to have maybe less mommy juice, or you may be feeling during this pandemic that mommy juice has been part of a routine because things have been so out of routine. So I thought we would share some mommy juice because, of course, responsibly, we should have some wine sometimes if you enjoy it. So I thought I've tried 3 things tonight. 1, I've never tried. 2, you'll see from the amount in the bottles, we've well tried. Here is a Bartenura Malvasia di Casorzo. I don't even know how to say it. And if you are a wine connoisseur, please don't shame me online because I am not. So you will notice that my wines are not from the fine wine schools, but they are from the Let's Have Fun variety of wine school. So here, this is a sparkling rosé. It's supposed to be a little sweet, which is the kind of wine that I like. So here we have a Malvasia di Casorzo, a Bartenura, which I love because this also makes my favorite Moscato. So there's a sweet one. From my wine tasting trips, I don't remember. Does the sweet go first or last? Probably last. I better say that's probably last. So that's the Bartenura. I'll put that there. Here's something mild and easy. You see that there's very little left in this bottle. It is a rosé, the Palm from Whispering Angel. This is when my kids were here a few weeks ago. This is the wine that is easy to drink by the pool. It's very light rosé. You can hardly even see it. The glass is also a little tinted pink. And then for a more richer Cupcake Vineyards Decadent Red. You can see what a fine bottle of wine it is. It too, like the Whispering Angel, the cap unscrews, which makes it very easy to lie down in the wine cooler refrigerator. All right. I think I had this one at Shabbat recently. So we'll give this the Decadent Red a really deep red color. That's very nice. Full-bodied, not too dry. What is it called? Black Forest Decadent Red. And since I'm really not good at describing, Black Forest is a dark decadent red blend. All right, so for those who like a dark red, this is nice. It's nice cold. One can try that wine. Cleansing palate. I didn't bring any palate cleansing foods. I'll just have to have the water. What's nice about wine, there's no mixing. Now for the Whispering Angel. Whispering Angel is great. I always have it at the tennis open, the Miami. When we used to go to Key Biscayne, we used to be drinking this. This is quite dry, this rosé. Very nice. Also very light. Good for a hot day when you're watching tennis. Now this, look at the difference in the color. It's a light red, light sparkle to it. I didn't know what it was when I bought it, but it's something I hadn't seen, and I was in a kosher market in North Miami. So this is my kosher addition to this wine tasting. This is a sparkling, sweet, not as sweet as Moscato, but this is very yummy if you like a sparkling, sweet wine. So here we go. So if you were one who would be having some wine during our happy hour, 3 different choices here. The Bartonura is a Malvasia di Tasorzo, a sweet, sparkling pink or rosé. The Whispering Angel, always a good one. How do I buy wine? Well, if I don't know what it is, sometimes Milam's helped me, and they put what's on sale at the end of the aisle. And since, as I said, I'm not such a connoisseur, you got a really pretty bottle, and it's at the end of the aisle, and so I buy it. Or in the old days, pre-COVID, they would be giving out samples, and since I don't like to disappoint a salesperson, if they were giving me a sample, I would tend to buy that wine too. So that's really how I shop for wine. I either taste a sample or it's at the end of the aisle and it looks really pretty. And if I haven't tried it yet, I'll give it a shot. So I'll move our mommy juices to the side. I don't want to sound sexist, but I don't know why it's mommy juice. Is daddy juice different? Daddy juice is not wine. Daddy juice is something else. Well, we'll put the mommy juice there, and we'll think about, spring break. Can you think back to March, to spring break? Actually, maybe the week before spring break, when suddenly everything shut down, and this just started, COVID and having everybody at home, and we thought, well, maybe it would just be a couple of extra weeks of vacation and we'll get back to normal. And then when we didn't get back to normal, we thought, okay, well, we can do this home learning and remote learning till the end of the school year. I got on Google Meets and Google Hangouts and Zoom and taught Hebrew and B'nai Mitzvah and adults and adapted, and we all did that. We can do that for a while, and that was through the end of the school year. And then we picked up doing services, and kids did that. And I guess everybody thought, okay, we can do it to the end of the school year. It's only another 6 weeks or so. All right. And then when camp didn't happen, we thought, well, all right, so this summer will be different. We'll figure out how to do a different summer. Kids will get used to it, be less of a tight schedule, and maybe that change will be good. Maybe we'll come to a happy medium and realize the kind of schedule we had before, maybe that was too much. Maybe a lightening up is a good thing. But maybe after all this time, have some of us lightened up maybe a little too much? Have the expectations we've placed on children disappeared maybe? The regular routines, we loosen the parenting reins a bit too much. Maybe we've overcompensated because we've been so ill at ease and the kids have been out of sorts. What have we done? Do you have a teenager sleeping until 3 p.m. and on PlayStation all night? Have you had your toddler or your young child back in your bed and that was great for a while and you loved it, and now you're realizing, oops, maybe it's hard now to get them back into their own room? Have you had a kind of maybe regression in behavior and frustration tolerance because you're able to give so much attention to that child and they just need you so much, but things are about to change. People have to go a little bit their own ways. How can you get that sense of self-control, your self-control, and their control back? How are we going to do that? Well, I don't have all those answers, but I know somebody who does. So let me introduce you to Laura Sharp, a longtime friend of mine. Laura and I raised our two oldest children together. Her son Alex and my daughter Eliana they're only a week apart. And her daughter Lexi and my daughter Molly are longtime friends. They're the same age, went through school together. And so we've known each other for a very long time. And Laura's a fabulous parenting expert, child development expert, and she's a licensed mental health counselor, LMHC, NCC, National Counselor. Give me that last C.
National Certified Counselor.
National Certified Counselor. And she has a lot. I'm going to ask her some questions, and she has a lot of those answers on how to gain some of that power, not power, but how to gain some of that those boundaries and routines back that she's going to remind us that we need. So, Laura, it's so good to see you. And Laura's also a long time Temple Beth Am member. Her parents are founding members. So we are thrilled that you're here. Thank you. Boy, that new home looks great. Looks like you've been there forever. That's gorgeous. I'm gonna look and peek and someday come see it. Welcome and thank you for being here. And jump on in. I think you have to get a little louder. It's hard to hear you.
Okay, well, I am so happy to be here and to be with you. And this is my office. So you get a chance to join me here, and you can come to my house another time and bring the mommy wine.
Okay.
And we'll enjoy that. Yeah, it's been pretty tough, trying to figure out how to calm that chaos. And where do you go from here? How do you do that? Well, I think the first thing that's really important is to understand that everything that you said was exactly correct. We have come through a long litany of changes over the course of these 5 months. And every time we thought like, hey, this is it, there was always a different level to it. And for sure, our parenting strategies have changed from the beginning to now. So the first most important step I would recommend is really understand and accept where you are with your family without judgment. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be upset with the changes that have happened over time, like why is my child still sleeping with me, or why are they on the electronics too much, or now they're having talk back attitudes, and what happened. So I think that you can understand a couple things. Number one is that you can make it back from this, that this was the temporary thing. And just like anything in life, change happens, and change is through behavior. All behaviors learned, so we can get them back to where they're supposed to be. So what you want to do is take a look maybe in February. How was your family unit or your family system running in February? And where is it now? What are those things that you like, that you agree with? There's a lot of positives that happen in this very unfortunate situation. A lot of family bonding, a lot of priority restructuring as well. And where do you want to be? So you can take with you as you move forward into the next step of getting the kids back into routine and getting them ready for school, by taking with you what you need and what worked well, and maybe not overscheduling them, and enjoying that time together, having that inclusive opportunity of time with them, and maybe leaving out some of those things that weren't so great, maybe the too late bedtimes or the too much electronics and that sort of thing. And once you figure out where you want to go, there's always a great opportunity to start now.
So how does one make those decisions?
Yeah.
Where should I go? And what's a way that people can look back and say, okay, what worked and what didn't work? Does everybody thrive with structure? Or maybe people say, oh, my family works better with less structure now. Maybe I had too much.
Right. That's a really good point. I think that you've got to kind of reassess as you're looking where you were, where you are, and where you want to be, and figure that piece out. What we do know for sure is that boundaries for kids mean safety. For sure, the boundaries have to be set. So if you became a little bit more lax on the boundaries now, it's important to kind of pull them back. The boundaries are going to be very important along with the routines. Start reestablishing those routines. But the question is, how do you do it? Because it's very important that you allow your kids the opportunity to know what you expect of them before you do it.
Can you give us an example?
I was just going to say, the example I can give you would be that if you decided you liked baking every afternoon, and since I am definitely not a baker and I'm not good at it, it's an example for sure. So let's say you were baking every afternoon and you really enjoyed it and it's your thing and you want to do it, and someone came in and told you there's no more baking starting tomorrow, there's not baking, I'm not getting you the supplies, you can't do it. You would have a major freak out. What do you mean? This is my routine, I like it, it brings me peace, it reduces my anxiety, baking is great for me. The problem is that when we have change without something called front loading, or without really talking about it ahead of time, you can get into more of a power struggle with your child, or you can get a lot of resistance. So what you want to do is just kind of watch, figure out what are those things that need to be changed. Oh, definitely too much electronics. Oh, definitely we need to start with the earlier bedtimes. Oh, you know what? The attitude is there. Those sort of things. And it could be the opposite. Maybe you have a child that's very shy or very introverted and it's not really coming out. So figure out where you want to start, and that's where you can kind of front load them. And you can say, you know what, we're getting ready for school to start again, or we're getting ready to get back into the routine of ending summer. And so here's what it's going to look like. Remember, we have earlier bedtimes, or remember, electronics are going to be monitored, or we don't do them during the week. So they have time to process it, and they have time to really know, oh, is this really happening? And it's not a shock to their system. It would be like if we just threw somebody in the deep end. When they came out, they would be flailing like, what happened? But if they knew that they were going in and, you know what, this is it, and be prepared and you're on your way, you have less resistance and less difficulty in behavior management. So once you kind of set that and you tell them what's going to happen, as far as like, hey, we're ending one area and we're beginning another. I always like to do that. The beginning of school year is like, wow, we're getting ready for the beginning of the school year. The end of the school year is, wow, look what you've accomplished. We are ending the school year and getting ready for summer, because you're celebrating the accomplishment, whether it was successful or not, or things they're working on, or things that they need to improve. You have a starting point. So if you can get ahead of it and share with them that what's coming down the pike and these changes are coming, and you're including them in the process, that's going to be very important to reestablishing your boundaries, reestablishing your expectations, and really making sure that you have routine set for everybody. And then little by little start that process. So if they were going to bed at 9, then you can kind of make it 8:30 and then kind of bump it back. And the best type of scenario is about a week out, whether you're going back to school or you're not. It is still the routine. And we have to remember that when we go to remote learning or in school learning, it's very exhausting for the child. It's very mentally draining. And we know that from just our Zoom calls and everything that we've been doing. So we really want to make sure that we are giving them the best opportunity for success by not being too tired, making sure that they, get up at the right time. They're not too tired in the morning, that they have enough rest, that they have, had their breakfast, had their nutrition, so that they are in the best case to start.
You use the term boundaries. What do you mean by boundaries?
So boundaries are very important. It's interesting that when there's adults who maybe give us a tone of voice, or an adult who does something that we don't like, we have no problem saying, hey, excuse me, or you know what, I really didn't like when you said that. But when our children do these same things, it's very difficult sometimes to reinforce the boundaries. Boundaries are those things that make us feel uncomfortable. You know what? Kids really need the parent to be in charge. And it is not the type of situation where we're saying, like, do as I say and you better listen to me. But that parent who knows and teaches their child that I'm the parent and my job is to teach you, to love you, and to keep you safe. That's my job. And so you may not like some of the things that I'm doing, but I'm doing this because it's what my job is. Those children that really understand that piece have less anxiety. They are able to function better in all different kinds of environments. When a child feels, not to say that they are, but when they feel like they're in charge, meaning there are no boundaries, that's very anxiety provoking for the child. If they because they don't understand, it would be like giving the keys to the car to a 10-year-old. They wouldn't know what to do, they wouldn't know how to drive. It would be very stressful for them. How do you read the signs? How do you stop? But if you gave those same keys to a 16-year-old or 15-year-old, they are ready for it, they're raring to go. It's the same thing with the boundaries, with our routines. We really want the kids to know that we are in charge. We're setting those boundaries because we love them unconditionally. We need to teach them, and we need to keep them safe.
Great. So now that they have to go back to school, and some of the schools will be remote, and we understand from listening to Berta Carvajal and some of the leaders of the private schools that the remote game is a more serious remote learning game than it was at the end of the school year. And there'll be synchronous learning, and kids will have to be in front of their screens at a certain time. They have to be ready and set to go. So what are some of the skills that kids are going to need to be good learners this coming year? And some of those skills, which because they haven't been in a classroom for a long time, they may have lost, they may be rusty with some of those skills. So what kind of skills are kids going to need, and how can the parents help brush up on those skills?
Yeah. Well, boy, that's really a great question, because it you know what, even from what we were talking about, by setting boundaries and expectations, early bedtimes, getting up at the right time, the child being responsible for him or herself and his or her things, making sure that they have their uniform shirt, that their utensils or their supplies are ready. That is all teaching responsibility. And so that they understand that schooling is their responsibility. That is their job. So it is their job to make sure that they are ready for learning. It's a great opportunity for the parent also at this time to do another one of those reflections and look back and say, like, you know what, my child, it really has maybe some difficulty with speaking up or advocating for him or herself. And the idea is that you want them to, when they're on, doing their school online or even in person, you want them to be able to raise their hand, to speak up when they have a question or something going on. If we're not teaching those kind of skills at home, like confidence building or frustration tolerance, or how to win and lose the right way, it's going to be very difficult for them, especially with online learning, to be able to follow those. So a great thing to do would be for the parent to pinpoint what exactly, is the hot ticket, or what's the hard part for my child to do, and focus in on that. It's like intentional attention, making sure, like, if your child, hates board games because they always want to win, I would go full force into game night and really make sure that you are teaching your child that skill of winning and losing. How do you do it though? It's not by telling. I find that sometimes you know, depending on how we were raised and what's going on in the environment, a lot of people, or if our children have something to say to us, like, well, this happened at school, and we want to say, well, did you do that? Or you should say that. That's the hard part, because we are not, you know, where we weren't in that situation. We don't know what their perspective is. So it's important to empower the child. And what that means is to ask, not tell. So when you're playing that board game and the child says, I want the red, and I want you to go, I want the red. Well, I want the red. What? The asking is, well, what should we do? You are promoting problem solving. So when they say, no, but I want to win, or I want to go for it, so you did, then you ask the question again. Well, it looks like we're stuck. What should we do next? If you're always asking, you're going to find out where your child is and then how to help them pass that bump. So when they bring a situation home, you know, to you, maybe they're going to say, like, I'm too tired, or I don't feel like doing this. Ask them, well, what do you think you should do about it? Whose job is school? Well, you know, that's your job. Okay, so what can you do to help you stay awake? Let them come up with them, because then it holds them accountable for making decisions in their life. They can't be mad at us as the parents. There's no bad mommy or bad daddy, or you made me go to bed. What you're saying is, well, that's your job. How are you going to fix it? That teaches independence, responsibility. It helps them manage. Again, if you can front load with your family, and you know, like, normally these games, we kind of get a little frustrated, don't we? What do you think we can do so that we can make it through this game without being so grumpy with each other? With older kids, it's the same thing. You know what? It looks like you're really tired. You've been on electronics a lot. You've got a responsibility. What's your plan for fixing that? Or how do you think that, you know, you can do that and that at the same time? Well, let's see. I like your plan. We'll try it your way first. If not, I'm so glad to help you. But again, you're asking and you're not telling.
So I guess parents need a lot of patience like the kids need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? It's, you are all working together. You know, it is not any one person in the family. It is about how the family system works together. Because if there's one wheel on the wagon that's got a bump, the whole wagon bumps. So we want to make sure that everybody has a piece. When, you know, you're getting your child ready to acclimate back to the online process of school or going to school, really everybody's routine needs to be altered so that everybody feels that there's change coming. And the most important thing is for the parents to model the behavior that they want to see. If you are calm and you're confident and you are showing your child that, you know, they got this, even though you may be nervous inside, or even though you're very stressful, your child will get that message, and they also will be able to take on any challenges. We don't know exactly what will happen, but we know that they will be able to make it through no matter what.
So I still, when I look at my 3 20-something-year-olds and it's time to put away leftovers after dinner, I see they still have trouble figuring out which Tupperware will fit what amount of food. And I wonder to myself, gee, should they have been doing this their whole lives so they can have a better idea of space management and spatial awareness? Because they seem to have missed it the last 20-something years. I must have done it for them. And it's, I guess we can always try to go back and have people try to figure it out now for themselves. But I love that idea of asking them so they have the ability to solve those problems and lower their frustration. What about temper tantrums, which I know is not just about 2-year-olds or 4-year-olds. It could be, well, I guess it's frequently 14-year-olds. How do we handle that now, especially during transition? Because when the child's frustration and I guess insecurities about these changes come along, that can frequently occur.
Yeah, that's a really good point and a very good question. You know, it's all about communication and about how we're able to connect with our teens and our children. So if we're following that model that I'm your parent, and that means I love you unconditionally, I'm keeping you safe, and I'm teaching you, really any other strategy falls underneath that umbrella. So if when temper tantrums happen or something's going on and we're able to have these conversations with our children, and recognizing, I understand that you're stressed, and I understand, that this might be, a different situation for you. Tell me how you're feeling. Really genuinely ask how they are feeling. Try to connect with them. You can, and even with younger children, you can say, you know what, schooling before was this way. What do you think schooling will be like now? Again, there's that asking point. You're not telling them what you believe school will be, but you're asking them, what do they think it will be? When this happens, they're going to be able to communicate with you. Well, I won't be able to see any of my friends, or I won't be able to talk to anybody, or it's going to be too hard for me, or I can't stay focused. So you're going to be able to really have the opportunity to have very meaningful and deep conversations with your kids. At that time, that connection piece is going to be so important to helping reduce temper tantrums, reduce frustration, reduce all of the unknown, because really we are all in the area of unknown. We don't know. What we know is that, you know, whatever we put our children in life, we know that they can overcome. We know that they can accomplish. And when we, share that, our sentiments with them, and we show them that, it's not by what we say. It's not really, I know you can do that. It's like, what can you do if that happens? Tell me. Wow, that's really great thinking. So that they're like, wow, I came up with a great idea, or I'm going to try that. You go with the asking again. Well, what if that doesn't work? What else could you do? And really get them thinking. Again, those temper tantrums, it's a very difficult age. We've got, hormones going on. We've got a pandemic going on. We've got very unique circumstances for school and for learning. We've got the lack of socialization with, their peers, which is very important to them. So there is a lot going on, and we as parents need to make sure that we are really having these deep conversations with our kids so that they can be the least amount of stressed as possible under these circumstances, knowing that of course we are all stressed, but how do we help them to manage that? And again, modeling it ourselves as well.
So I know that in your practice, you work a lot with children and young adults, children and adolescents, and socialization. So socialization and social distancing really are opposite sides of the coin. What kind of advice can you give to families about how do we keep children appropriately socializing on their right developmental stage in life in this age of social distancing? How are they going to keep up that development now? What can they do?
Yeah. Important question. I think there's a few things. If we're talking family to family, I think that you have to do what is safe for yourself and your family. And if you have been, that you've been social distancing, and that your family is, taking all the precautions necessary, and that you have been seeing another family, or you have friends that you also compare with you, it really is okay to get the kids together, to have a play date, socially distant, outside, something that will keep them, apart, so that they can see each other and just start to, we hope that our numbers, will go in the right direction. And over the course of, not too long from now, is, life will sort of hopefully get back to normal, right? But until that time, that socialization piece is important. Having special or select family or friends over to have one-on-one interaction is important. With your teens, it's very important as well. It's, each age, you want to say it's just as important as the next. What you can do in your home with your younger students is making sure that they don't lose those very important socialization skills and emotional skills that we need them to have: sharing, taking turns, expressing what they need, all of those things. What can you do? Be creative in your home. Something else for you to do would be maybe you establish a make-believe restaurant. and you're talking to, your child, and maybe they have their friend, even online. Well, what kind of restaurant will you have? What will you serve there? And watch how the dynamics are between the two kids. Well, one only wants to have pizza, and the other one says, well, I only want mac and cheese. Well, what can we do? There's asking those questions. So they are learning how to compromise. They're learning how to take turns, sharing, that sort of stuff. Your older children as well. I think that piece is important. If there's a special person that has been social distancing and you feel safe about it, maybe they can both do their homework after school, socially distanced, wearing masks in the same place, or out on the patio, or doing something like that where they still are connecting. And there are a lot of sites, that kids have been going into where they can kind of see and talk to each other online. But it would be great if they had the opportunity to be in the same room with them and to still see them, and start to get small 1 to 2, groups together, just so that they are not losing that piece. The problem with the teenagers is when they're missing out, they think their world has collapsed, that the whole world is moving on, and they're not. But they really need to understand, we're all doing this in pieces, and we're all supporting them wanting to see their friends, as long as it's safe and socially distant. So parent to parent, have these conversations with other parents, see if you can start to get them together.
Thank you. Anything we should be looking out for?
I think that if you have a child that is showing distress in any area, if you have a child that's exceptionally emotional, understand that it's very normal for children to worry. It's very normal for them to ask a lot of questions or to be concerned about things. That's where these conversations are going to be very important, that they can come to you and they know that they can share with you. But over an extended period of time, if you see a child is not eating correctly, or stopped eating, or if you see that they're not sleeping where they used to be a good sleeper. So differences or changes in behavior, whether it's, physically, whether it's emotionally, it's, important to maybe reach out. And again, I think we have to have a lot of patience and a lot of understanding and support. I think that it takes traditionally 6 to 8 weeks to transition into a new school year or into a new situation. But now we have not only a new school year and a new situation, but we have a kind of new everything. So it's going to take a little bit of time to, have a little bit more patience with your children, a little bit more hugs, a little bit of extra love for the child, just so that they know that you're there for them, every step of the way. If you find that any sort of these behaviors that are concerning to you, that are changes in behavior, are occurring on an ongoing basis, I would reach out to a professional, just so that you can get some guidance on how to, help that child in this situation.
Okay, so our expert, Laura Sharp, has reminded us and guided us that in this time of change and uncertainty going forward, job as the parent is to teach the child, love the child unconditionally, teach, love the child unconditionally, and keep the child safe.
Absolutely.
And if that is the parenting strategy, everything else will have to fold into that. And the skills your child will need for school, of course, will be to build that stamina back for attention, to get that routine back going, to watch those boundaries, to increase their patience and their frustration tolerance, and to always ask those questions so they can be great problem solvers, because every day now they'll be facing new and different problems. And parents will not always be sitting on the next chair overlooking their screen. So they need to be those problem solvers. They need to be their own advocates, and parents need to keep them safe and to love them. So we hope that you will have, and we know that you're going to have a challenging start to school. And we know that this kind of guidance for your child will give them success. Most people do thrive with boundaries and routines that are, of course, flexible for your family. I love the image that if one wheel is wobbly, the whole cart, which is the family, will be wobbly too. So we want to keep that family system strong. Know that we at Temple Beth, we're here to support the system. That is the role of the synagogue. We want to be that emotional and social and, of course, spiritual support for you. Religious school will be starting, of course, pre and day school will be starting, and all of the programs that we have to be there for you, to be an uplift and to be guidance also. And that's why I have my dear friend Laura here this afternoon. So with all of that, this is uplifting and this is positive. The more that we can learn, remember, we are the people of the book. The Torah is that document that does just what Laura was telling us, gives us boundaries and gives us routines and gives us guidance to be successful in making those right choices. So look, we were the parents that used to scream out the window like that movie and said, make good choices. And of course, we embarrassed our children, but it's okay because we are hopeful and that generally they do make the right choices. And now we share the successes and the less than successes with all of you. I wish everybody an Erev Tov. I thank you so much, Laura. Laura is available, of course. You can find her, Laura Sharp, LMHC, NCC. She's at the temple. She's here in town at Gulliver Schools. And we are grateful that you shared some of your wisdom with us today, Laura. Good luck, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, a wonderful Shabbat. Don't forget that next Friday night, Temple Beth Am is having our Shabbat drive-in. So you can drive in, but you need a reservation. So tbam.org/drive-in, and you can make that reservation there. Have a wonderful night. And as we end, of course, on Thursdays, we say Erev Tov. Good evening, everyone.